G'day and welcome to Kenty Blitz, your daily hit of NRL news. Big week ahead for us, lots of Origin talk. Kenty, some fantastic footy on the weekend.
Yeah, wasn't there some really good football played? Funny habits started to creep into the game, Warren. This idea of teams just letting the ball bounce. I don't know what they're doing that off the big kicks. It was one thing that came up on the weekend. I can't quite understand why they're all going that way.
Is that because the kickers have got so much work on the ball these days?
I think the philosophy is, that's part of it. And it's you'd rather just let the ball bounce, which gives you then an easier gathering, or if the opposition do get the ball back, it's still tackle six anyway. And it stops you running the risk of dropping the ball up in the air and giving them six again on the line. Really good games, though. I really liked the Dogs-Roosters game. Was one of those games. The Dogs, I thought they'd come out a bit faster than what they did. Their starts have been a problem in the past month or so, but just a high-quality game. Sometimes you sit down and you watch a game and you just appreciate how good the footy is.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of those games.
I mean, at halftime, I thought, well, here we go. Here's another case of maybe the Dogs kind of being a bit complacent, and then they came out after halftime and were unbelievable.
Well, the one thing the Dogs have shown, haven't they? They did it against Canberra, they did it against Brisbane, was they are able to get the half-time, use the half-time break to readjust, come out and change their game. And I don't think there's a team in the competition that does that as well as them. And they went out and they did that. The Roosters they're starting to look formidable, the Roosters.
Yeah.
They are very much on the improve. I know it's still... Look, it's still a bit of a way away before you say they're a top 8 side, because they've got a few teams to get past. Well, not a few, but they're back in that battle well and truly, aren't they? Like they're there. The Sharks Storm. Look,
just before that, there's a couple of games now where the Roosters have kind of dropped off at the end. I mean, do you think that's what they're looking for with DCE? Close out those games, which they probably could have won.
Well, your kicking game closes out the game. The Roosters are not quite getting that right at the moment, but. Look, they're a funny side because they've got youth in their spine. I know, obviously, Tedesco, you can pick that up, but the halves are very young. The halves are still finding the game at the moment. They're the guys that generally, when you get to a lead, you rely upon them to be the guys who are going to basically kick you out of trouble, get a good end to your sets, give you good yardage. So if the team is going to come back against you, they're pretty much going to have to go the length of the field to do that. So that's something the Roosters are still not quite getting across. Okay, they're not doing that really well at the moment, but they are a team on the improve. They are. You can see their development throughout the season already. They're only 11 rounds in now, and you can see how much they're improving. So they've come a long way, and obviously I think they've got a long way to go. Both like Nwanga Tunuasi, he's just a revelation.
What about that try?
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was so. Just so clever, but
I'm glad you said his surname too, so I didn't.
But the thing about it, though, is then you look at Xavier Coates' try for the Storm, okay? Now, I guarantee you, if that was in the AFL, that'd be Mark of the Year. He got about, what would you say, 12, 13 feet in the air?
I call him a specky.
It was unbelievable how high he got in that situation. So you talk about individual tries. Nwanga Tunuasi's was an unusual individual try. A lot of skill involved. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was able to execute it. So the Roosters must just sit back, and there is a train of thought around that they probably got the better end of the deal when they lost Suaalii and they gained this bloke. So, but that try was just something else. But for me, I thought the coach, I think that athletically, that's one of those few tries. That was up there with Morris when he scored against
same place,
same corner. Same corner. It was the same corner when he scored there against the Sharks when he's playing for St George Illawarra.
The amazing thing about that try is Atkinson, I think, was the player he jumped over and kind of just stood there after he scored and just was like, "How the hell did that happen?"
Well, he went up early. He put the knees sort of on the shoulders or in the back sort of area, which then didn't allow Atkinson to even get into the contest.
And he just hung. He hung in the air.
He was just there for so long. It was just, there's no doubt that Melbourne, when they get the AFL guys in to help them down there in Melbourne, this try came from that.
Great game, that game, Sharks Storm.
Yeah, and it's I tell you what, it just gives a little bit of hope to those Sharks fans. They've been a bit dour at different times throughout the season. But to go out and play Melbourne, who, even though they're running, what I think it was third the competition at the time.
And they started on fire, the Storm.
Yeah, they started well, the Storm. They had Harry Grant back. They played it in a game that I think really put notice that they can get Melbourne. They can beat Melbourne. And as the premiership favourites, even though they're not leading the competition, it showed that the Melbourne are vulnerable with Harry Grant back particularly. So a lot of positives that come out of that Cronulla performance.
Nico Hines quietly seems to be playing himself back into form now.
Well, Nico's just got to start getting confidence, running the ball. The strategy of changing and making Trindle the number one caller, that seems to be working. That I think that's helping Nico a little bit. Amazing. Look, to be fair, Cronulla didn't get a player in either Origin team. So they're going to have a bit of a run through here, you would imagine. And I think it's going to hold them in good stead. Significantly, they'll also come through the Origin period once it's all over. And a lot of Origin players come out and they have this emotional hangover that because it's such adrenaline-filled playing Origin for this next 6 weeks in and out of squads and camps and all the rest of it. Cronulla don't have that. So they will just emotionally just stay on that level playing ground, just keep going through, getting their stuff done, hopefully picking up the few wins on the way through. But mostly they'll come out of it, and I think they'll be in a really good spot there. They won't have the wear and tear of Origin. They won't have the emotional letdown of Origin. And that period, that month after Origin's all over, I think when every team is playing every week, I think that's where you'll see the best out of Cronulla because they'll be playing sides and they'll be in a good place because of the lack of Origin players they've had.
Yeah, right. Let's stay on Origin. Obviously, the teams have been named last night and this morning.
Yeah.
Great time of the year. Great to be involved in somewhat. Yep.
Well, yeah, this is when the fairy tales get written, isn't it? It's just Origin just has this magic about it that it just creates stories. It just writes itself every year. And all the great Melbourne Cups have all got a story behind them. All the great grand finals have all got a story behind them. And Origin every year writes its own story. And it's just so good at providing moments, even in the lead up to this game. Max King getting picked for New South Wales. You've got who we got at Queensland? We've got Robert Toya getting picked after 10 games.
Not many players have been picked after 10 games.
No.
I can't think of any.
No, it's very short. It's there's been
in the modern game, not in the modern.
Ben Eichen got picked, I think, after 3 in '95. There were circumstances around that, obviously, with the Super League war and all the rest of it.
30 years ago, though.
Yeah, well, that's true. I'll tell you what, doesn't have the pressure. But, yeah, okay. So, no, you don't see that often. They were, I suppose, under a little bit of pressure, though. Like, Toya's got the potential to become one of those famous Origin stories.
Yeah, okay.
Picked after 10 games, picked from nowhere. His name was not even whispered in the lead up to Origin.
Had 3 knee reconstructions, I think, 2 or 3.
Yeah, and they're tough to come back from. A lot of players come back from reconstructions, less so now because the procedure's much better, but a lot of players come back from Origin and they're never quite the same. From reconstructions, they're never quite the same.
So he's obviously got a hard edge to him, right? And he's
look at him. You can see he's got a hard edge. Watch the way he plays. He's got that hard edge. So, and
he'll mark up against Latrell.
He looks like he'll mark Latrell, which is going to be
a handful.
It's going to be a handful, but it shows the faith that Queensland have got in him. And look, depending on what happens in the game, it's one of those situations. Like I said, it could just go into folklore. Like Queensland is full of these moments, particularly Queensland, full of these moments where things happen in the game and they just sit there and they just live on, and Queensland use it as fuel for their next campaigns. And that's the famous Queensland spirit that we hear about. New South Wales.
Well, New South Wales look better on paper, right? They look better on paper.
They look much better, much better.
But we heard Ben Eichen in here last week talking to you, and he was pretty confident. You were talking about how it looks better on paper, and he was just kind of smiling.
They're an unusual mix Queenslanders because they are always confident that they'll win, yet they are always quick to grab the underdog tag. So you've got to sit there and you've got to bring that into it. But Queensland, look, they had a couple of issues. So they've got 3 debutants, got Bo Former, Trent Liero, along with Toya, who are all having their Origin debut.
What's that phone call like?
Well, I think for someone like Toya, I think he just would have been like it just would have shocked him.
Mm.
Like, I just don't see how he would have even known that was coming. You get those moments. I always go back to the Tom Dearden example when Billy Slater knocked on his door and told him he was starting, and he just was so choked up he couldn't speak. And mostly the players get a little bit of an indication beforehand that they're being looked at.
Yeah, okay.
So it doesn't come totally out of the blue always, but this one came out of the blue. And it must be a great moment for someone like Billy Slater to be able to ring a bloke up. So, mate, off picture. You're going to be wearing jersey 3 or 4, whatever he's wearing, and in he goes. And Beau Fermor, he's just a modern day warrior. He's one of those guys. He'll put his head where people won't put their feet. He'll go out. He'll do what needs to be done. He's a team first player, really, really heavy on team first, and you can see he's always trying to make things better for his teammates. And again,
keeping Dave Fafita out of that left side.
Yeah, well, look, and
Titans.
I think that tells the story in itself, doesn't it? Really. Yeah. So that's great result for him. And Liero, well, look, we don't know a lot about Liero. The only time we've spoken about him this season is really the penalty he gave away and a kick in the arse he got off Craig Bellamy after it. But he's a quality player. You can already see that. He's a big body. And look, Queensland are already talking. Look, they'll start this whole camp talking confidently, as if we've got nothing to worry about with these debutants. And then once the debutants start to get settled into camp, start to feel okay in camp, then the whole Queensland spin will begin. And they'll start to talk about, gee, we're up against it. We're the underdogs. New South Wales got such a good-looking team. You see a couple of old legends come out to start to put that sort of narrative out there in the public.
New South Wales will fall for that. We'll start getting overconfident.
That's the theory. Yeah, that's the theory. But New South Wales, they're a good-looking side. And Laurie Daly had the opposite. So let's go through. Not only on the weekend did Billy lose, he had to pick his debutants, but he lost Tom Gilbert with a pec. He lost Selwyn Cobbo with his wrist injury. Murray Tailungi had a calf injury. Reece Walsh, we know, is not available. So they had a lot of players who were not able to be picked. So they've basically had to go to the old-fashioned Queensland way and just pick blokes who were unheralded and completely off the radar to go into this team. That makes Queensland dangerous, though. The one thing Queensland really, really covet more than anything else is to be in that situation where they're just written off and regarded as very little chance. And the spin will begin. They'll work hard on all the folklore of Queensland tales of past where they've come from behind, they've come from being massive underdogs, they've been disregarded, they've been disrespected, and they will build on that this week. Tellingly, though, they still do have Harry Grant. They still have Cameron Munster. They've got Kalen Ponga, Daly Cherry Evans. Their spine is very, very good. And you put
Dearden on the bench as well.
Dearden on the bench, but you put that spine, and then you just put effort players and workers and believers in around them. They're right in the battle. You still got Tino Fasua Malawi up front. You've got Pat Garrigan playing lock. You've got Mo Fodawaker also playing prop. They still have a very, very formidable pack. So they'll be tight in the middle. They'll go forward in the middle. They've got a great spine. They're a little bit inexperienced on the edges. I don't know how tactically that will weigh into New South Wales. My understanding of traditions of origin is it won't mean a whole lot of disadvantage for Queensland in that regard. I remember years ago, Warren, I rang a assistant coach up and I was talking to him just about footy stuff and whatnot. We're just having a chat. And this was, I reckon it would have been about an April phone call. And I asked him what he was doing. And his head coach at the time was on the coaching staff of one of the Origin teams, or Queensland Origin team, to be fair. Anyway, when we were talking about it, I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm just putting some things together for the Queensland game plan to help out the coach. And I said, gee, I said, you wouldn't even know who's playing yet. You've got no idea who you're playing against. Why would you be doing that now? And he said, mate, it's actually easier than you think. And which was a statement that surprised me. And I said, why is that? He said, mate, Origin is not really a big game for game plans. Like in club footy, their game plans are fairly specific, and their game plans are about how we pick this bloke apart, pick that bloke apart, how we target this guy. But in Origin, firstly, for a number of reasons. One is the game is far more physical than say the normal club game. Secondly, the players are much closer together. There's very rarely a weak link in either side.
Yep.
And then on top of that, you see is Origin is, and they say it, but we don't believe it. It's just about effort. It's about that getting up, going again, and it's an attrition war where let's go out and go after each other, and let's just try and wear the opposition down. Now, there are certainly tactical things within the game, okay? But the Origin, because they don't have a lot of time together and they don't have that cohesion that you would in club football, it's far more, let's just play basic principles, and then you let the great players, which both sides have got plenty of, you let the great players, you let their instincts take over. And so when you've got momentum, you use that opportunity to go out and score points. And when you haven't got momentum, what you do is you say, okay, let's just try, and Queensland's famous words, absorb. When they know they're getting bashed up, Queensland, they never say they're under pressure. They say, let's just absorb, okay? That's just a mind trick that they play with themselves.
So, Kenty, you talk about effort players. Do you think that's what Laurie was thinking with the selection of Max King?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, Laurie told a great story at his press conference this morning about Max King. A couple of weeks ago, Magic Round. He made a run, tackled 4 metres from the try line, and the ball got turned over straight after that. I think it was Philip Sami picked up the ball, ran 80-odd metres. Next tackle, Max King was the guy making the tackle. And that's a big effort from a front rower to get back on a break like that, to be there for the tackle. And that shows you, one, it shows you his own ethics, his own approach to footy, but it also shows his commitment to his teammates and how important that is to him there. So Laurie's picked that, and Warren, that's sort of where I think New South Wales, historically New South Wales have always had the most talented team, and New South Wales have tried to, I wouldn't say so much finesse their way to victory, but New South Wales have always got into a series with this belief that we've got more talent, so it doesn't matter who we pick. If we go out and we play to that talent, we win. Queensland have always taken the opposite approach. We don't care that we don't have as much talent. We're just going to go out and we're going to guts it out, and we're going to beat you down, and we're going to win because we're going to try harder for longer. And that's been their history. Which
is kind of what Billy Slater said in his news conference today. They asked him if he was worried because only one of the Queensland teams are in the top 8. No Queensland teams won on the weekend, and his answer to that was, well, the Queensland teams aren't full of Queenslanders.
And that's true. And I had a look at the squad. This Queensland 17, there's 8 of them who play for Queensland clubs. New South Wales has 2 who play for Queensland clubs. That said, I haven't been through the makeup of each Queensland side, the 4 NRL teams, to see what the ratio there is, Queenslanders to New South Wales eligible players. So, for example, who knows that one of them's not got more Queenslanders in than New South Wales players than Queenslanders. So, but they don't care about that, Warren. The truth to all that, they understand Origin from the point of view, as I said, it's not so much about getting out and being the most clever team. It comes down to other factors. It is something that New South Wales historically has not done well as far as picking teams and their approach to games. New South Wales are always at their most vulnerable when they're heavily favoured. And because not so much I think they get big heads or get ahead of themselves in that regard, I think that New South Wales, what they start to do in that situation is they start picking talent first. And when you go back through the history of cock-ups with Origin selections for New South Wales, it always begins when they pick talent over character. Queensland's never ever wavered from character first. And Laurie, I think that's one of the things Laurie has learnt from his first stint as New South Wales coach to this one. I really like the team he's picked. I think it's a really gritty, gutsy team. And I think it's a team that Billy Slater and the Queenslanders will look at and go, there's something to be concerned about here. Because as much as there is certainly talent on the side, it's also a team that is going to go out and tough it out, and they're going to stay in the contest, and they're going to do all that, those nasty things that you just don't want to do, diving on loose balls and just all that. Defending, continuing to defend from the inside out once the ball's past you. getting back off kick chase, or getting back when there's been a break made. All those things that just the effort areas. Laurie's picked a side that's got all of them have got that in them. There's no prima donnas. There's no guys that go around and feel a bit, entitled. And I think he's just really picked a side that looks good. I think it's a side that will concern Queensland for that reason, because they'll go out and they'll, as backward as this sounds, it'll concern Queensland because they're a side that'll go out and play like Queensland.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And that's the one thing that does scare Queensland is they see themselves in the opposition. And when they don't see that, when they see a team brimming with talent, but they know they can ruffle their feathers and get on top of, that doesn't worry them as much as what this team will. It's
interesting you talk about character, because one of the big selection decisions was Terrell May not making the team. And there has, we think that calls bullshit. We've talked the character bullshit, we think that's bullshit. Then question that, but obviously that's, some knock on Terrell May. On the weekend, he ran 198 metres. He made 61 tackles. He played 80 minutes, made no misses.
Yeah. And he had a magnificent game on the weekend. He ruined his week, though, by the little thing that came out on social media where he was recording himself playing video games on Twitch, I think it was called, and whoever he was playing with asked him about Origin. He seemed to know he was already not going to get picked for Origin, and he basically joked, maybe I should switch allegiances. Now, Brad Fittler's came out heavy over the weekend, and he called it pathetic, which was very strong for Brad Fittler to say that. But as a former Origin coach, I think that's where it was coming from him. So he called it pathetic, and he told Terrell May to humble up a bit, which I thought was another fair dig at him. And I think that went into this. Look, I think May was just showing a bit of bravado, talking a game, and just
modern football,
talking it up. I don't think he really that switch allegiances comment was a genuine thing. I think it was just him just being a bit of a smart ass about things.
And maybe being a bit hurt, right? His pride was probably a bit hurt.
It could be.
Everybody's been talking about him making the team. He doesn't make the team. He's a young-ish guy. How do you deal with that dejection, right?
Yeah, it's true, but I don't think he had an expectation too. Okay, so we all know Payne Haas was going to be there. Mitch Barnett was there last year. So they're the two starting props for New South Wales this year. They were both there last year in a winning series. They're entitled to think they're going to get first crack, even though Terrell May has played very well this season. Okay, now beyond that then, Jake Trbojevic. Now, Jake got knocked out on the weekend. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. But Jake got knocked out on the weekend, which immediately put him out of contention for Origin 1.
Did that save Daly with a tough call?
Potentially we know it did. Was Daly going to make the call? I don't know for sure. I think New South Wales were looking at not picking him. So it potentially did save that embarrassment for both Laurie and Jake Trbojevic that he didn't get picked, being the incumbent New South Wales captain. But you look at who he's got on the bench. He's got Toya Kamano on there. He's got Spencer Leniu on there. Hudson Young's on the bench. Like, they've got a pretty good bench, New South Wales. And then, I don't think May had any right to assume he was going to be picked. I think Laurie actually gets an advantage out of not picking him, because it shows him that if there was an expectation that he was just going to come into Origin, as well as he's playing, it shows you've got to have to earn it a little bit. And I think, the best players for New South Wales and for Queensland are always been the ones that really feel like they earn it, because they don't want to blow the opportunity when they're there.
Yeah, right.
And New South Wales particularly have been guilty of picking players ahead of their time in the past, players on potential who don't quite get there, who it's almost treat it like it's a matter of course that they're going to be picked for New South Wales, so that the commitment probably doesn't tell through the other side when it comes down to performance. So I think it's a good choice by Laurie Day not to pick him. I think he's getting there, but he's this idea that he's the number 2 prop in the game, statistically, yes, he is. Okay, statistically, he's up there with Payne Haas on what he does numbers-wise. But essentially, I don't think I think he's still got a little bit to go to be ready to be picked for Origin. I believe if I was Queensland, I'd be more uncomfortable with Mitch Barnett there than Terrell May there this time round.
By all reports, Max King is a big character within the team. I know Gus Gould's a massive fan of his, so maybe that's the replacement for Jake.
Well, that's the other thing, and I do think that yeah, that's true. Okay, and the
like
other thing
for
is,
player, right?
Yeah, and he comes in and he just exudes all those qualities that you want out of an Origin player.
And he'll probably only play 20 minutes.
Yeah, he'll play from, depending on how fast the game starts, how much stoppages or how few stoppages there are in the game. He'll come on with 10, 15 to go in the first half. He'll play till half time. He'll get 15-minute break at half time. Then he'll come back on at half time. He'll get another maybe 10 minutes out, 15 minutes out, and then he'll be off. And he'll only be used late in the game if absolutely necessary.
Tommy Turbo, would you have picked him on the wing?
Well, look, the understanding was last week he was going to be picked. And then over the weekend there was a concern about the health of his legs. He's got a bit of an awkward gait at the moment, the way he's running. It looks like he's carrying injury the way he's running. And I think he was going to be picked until Laurie Daly saw that. And I actually commend Laurie for having the courage to say, you know what, let's go the other way and not picking him. As much talent as he got, you can't go into Origins games, particularly game one, carrying injured players. You got, and more importantly, you need players training for the week. Already, Stephen Crichton has got a groin injury. Payne Haas has gone for scans today on his quad. It looks like it's okay, so he'll be okay. But you can't have too many players sitting on the sideline, particularly for game one, during that training period, because you need to get that cohesion going. You need time together. You can get away with one. You can get away with players who have played together before. But when you're coming in, it's going to be a new coach around this time. You've got to sit there and you've got to say, okay, mate, we need time on the paddock. They don't get a lot of time on the paddock together, or certainly not as much as you would believe, because of all the the strength and conditioning and all the this one they've got to do all these extra commitments. They've got sponsors commitments. They've got all these autographs they've got to sign. They've got all this stuff that's got to go on. But the second to that, you just don't want them on their legs too much. You want them nice and fresh come Origin, come the game day. So from that point of view, the time you do have on the field together is vital.
Zach Lomax probably played himself back into the game.
Terrific,
instead of Turbo on Friday night. He was phenomenal form, mate. What do you think of Mitch Moses over Luai?
Look, that was I thought that was a bit of a surprise, to be fair. Yeah. But I'm really fascinated to see how it works out.
Which side they play on?
Well, clearly, looks like they'll play. Mitch Moses and Nathan are both right side players predominantly. Cleary, though, can switch to the left and be quite dynamic. We saw a couple of years ago in the grand final when Luai went off injured. Cleary started playing both halves. He scored that try that eventually won them the grand final a couple of years ago. He did it a few weeks back against Brisbane again. So he's shown a capacity to be able to play left side as well. They both obviously like to play right side because they're right foot kickers, so it puts them in a better position for kicking. But I don't think it's going to be a problem. But I'm really keen to see how they work together. And Mitch Moses, full credit to him, he's basically already handed over control of the side to Nathan Cleary. He will be the predominant play caller. He'll be the guy that if they both call, he gets ball first. And Mitch Moses is prepared to sit there and take that back seat. And the cleverness of it is he's just got to sit there and have a bird's eye view on how Nathan Cleary thinks and why Nathan Cleary is the number one halfback in the game, and which will no doubt add to his own game in the future. So
game one Wednesday week up in Brisbane, which will I think the Queenslanders will need to win that. Then we go across to Perth and back to Sydney. Just finishing up, Kenty, obviously a couple of big refereeing blunders on the weekend.
Oh, mate. Look, I'm trying my best after David Fairley came on the other day, sort of explained to us how difficult it all is.
Fantastic episode on Prime Time if you haven't watched that with David Fairley.
Yeah, but I tell you what, a couple of those on the weekend, the knock on that missed in the Dolphins Warriors game cost the Dolphins the game. Okay, it was a clear knock on. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck.
Right?
They lost by a try, and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck dropped it. Player in front of him picked it up. Referee ruled knocked back for some obscure reason, and Warriors scored the next set, win 16-12. So what do you make of that? And then What was the other one over the weekend?
The forward pass.
Oh, the forward pass, Ezra man.
That
Like,
was
come on.
unbelievable.
Like,
the referee was right there too.
That's the concern, Warren. The concern was the referee was there. And I tell you what, Jerry Sutton, I don't know. I don't think he looks for forward passes because so often in his games, he misses them. And this was as blatant a forward pass as you'll ever see. Even that's the fascinating thing. They switched to the sideline and you saw Ben Hunt, who's with the Broncos, who just scored the try, go, that was forward.
Yeah.
He actually he pointed it out to himself.
Yeah.
Like, so there's no hiding from that. But anyway, look, they got to. Luckily,
the Dragons got up there. Good win by the Saints.
I tell you, but again, they scored a try there that should not have been allowed. And you got Shane Flanagan under pressure as a coach at St George Illawarra. If they went up there and lost again, from that forward pass, the pressure just continues to mount on the coach, and suddenly, if you're not careful, his career's starting to look, his future's starting to look shady. Like they have this ripple effect sometimes. And anyway, look,
if you're Madge Maguire, do you wish you stayed at the Blues?
Probably. I reckon we got home Sunday night. Yes, I think he was probably thinking that.
Yeah.
But look, I know what he's like. He always regarded himself as a club coach. But I tell you what, the funny thing is when you talk to coaches is sometimes when they have a few losses, they're in a puzzle there, and it's hard to try and figure out what exactly is going wrong that they need to fix. And I think the Broncos are in that stage now. They are not quite sure what's going wrong.
Lost all confidence.
And therefore how to fix it.
Yeah.
But,
great try from that game. Jacob Little put it on the goosey against Ezra Man, and also in the other game last night with Appy Coruscant standing up Latrell at the end.
Yeah, I tell you what.
Phenomenal.
Well, he pretended he was going to kick the ball.
Yeah.
He left foot step, and Latrell, to his credit, Latrell watched the replay, saw what happened, nodded, well played, moved on. So, good game. Yeah, Appy was terrific last night. Gee, he played well.
Yeah, he did. I mean, big decision today, actually, at the West Tigers with the board meeting tonight to see what happens with Galvin. So we'll have that news tomorrow. Kenty, another great Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.